Good evening, everyone. Today, what we are going to study is about a new subject, that is financial instruments and derivatives. Now, this is a specialization elective too, and it's in connection to financial markets and derivatives and various instruments that are traded in the financial markets. So today we are going to go through something about we're going to learn about capital and money market. So this is part one of unit one. Let me tell you what kind of things that would be covered in this chapter. So this chapter, there are four things which are mentioned over here. The first one is capital and money market. We are going to understand what these two markets are all about, who all participate in capital market as well as money market, how these markets work differently, and what are the different functions that they need to carry on. The second thing that we are going to understand is role of capital market in economic development. So we are going to talk from the perspective of Indian economy also. The next is about role of SEBI in the market. So being a market regulator, what SEBI does, so we are going to study the role of SEBI. Then the last but not the least, this chapter also tries to cover reforms in capital and money market. So very recent reforms, as in how they have over a period of time changed themselves, and what are the new things or new happenings in capital as well as money markets that would be studied. Now before getting into understanding what is capital market and what is money markets, let's start with the basic first, which is called as a financial markets. Now, financial markets, as you know, or as a definition goes of financial markets, it is a marketplace. Now, in this marketplace, basically trading of financial assets is done. Now, what kind of financial assets? So shares, debentures, bonds, derivatives, currencies. If anybody would like to trade or invest in such kind of financial assets, they can very easily do it in a financial market. Now, this market plays a very crucial role in any country's economy. Now, why it is? Because generally there are limited resources. For example, if I say money is a limited resource, and if you want to maximize this resource or make a maximum usage of this resource, you need to these financial markets play a very vital role in allocating any kind of limited resources, and thus boosts up the country's economy. Now, financial markets, they majorly act as an intermediary between the savers and investors by mobilizing the fund from one party to another. So mobilization is another thing that these financial markets do. Another thing is that financial markets generally provide a platform to buyers and sellers. Now, over here, what happens is, in a financial market, the buyer and the seller may connect with each other. They may trade a particular asset. They may determine a price of a particular asset which is being traded. And this determination of price is generally by the demand and the supply forces. So this is how the market, a financial market, generally works. The next aspect about financial market is there are certain points to remember. Okay, so whatever we have studied, we understand that financial market is a marketplace where all investors basically deal in certain financial instruments. So it could be any instrument. It could be an equity share, it could be a debenture, it could be a bond, or it could be a currency. So any kind of financial instrument, when traded in a marketplace, it would be called as a financial market. Now, your financial market would provide a vehicle for allocation of savings to investments. So whatever you are saving, if it is converted into an investment by pumping your money into financial markets, the financial market in itself would act as a vehicle, and it will try to allocate all the savings to the investment firm. Next, every time it won't happen that a financial market is a physical location. For example, let's say we know about Bombay Stock Exchange, or we know about National Stock Exchange, or we know about Pune Stock Exchange. So every time it is not going to happen that this would be a physical location. So sometimes the exchange of assets or exchange of a financial instrument also happens over internet or phone. So a very good example of this is dealing into currencies. So one bank deals into currencies with the other bank, not it is not a physical location wherein the transaction happens, but via the internet, some currency is transferred to another bank, or it might also happen over a phone call. So every time financial markets are not restricting themselves from working just because they don't have a physical location to work for. Okay, so these are the basic highlights of a financial market or financial instruments and how a financial market works. Let's move on to understand the classification of financial markets. Now, whenever we go or Google or we just see the books, we generally have seen that financial markets can be segregated under money market or capital market, but it is not all the time the same kind of bifurcation that you will see in all the other textbooks. Okay, so different textbooks or different books have different ways of putting forward how this financial market has been classified. So this is just one simple case wherein your financial market can be divided into money market and capital market, but I have some more to show. As in, the classification of financial markets can be based on certain things like nature of claim, maturity of claim, timing of delivery, or it can be also classified as depending on the organizational structure of an organization. So as far as nature of claim, if you see, there are two types of market: the debt market, equity market. On the basis of maturity claim, it can be divided into money market and capital market, wherein capital market can be further divided into primary market and secondary market. As far as timing of delivery is concerned, the market can be segregated under cash market, future market, and as far as organizational structure is concerned, it could be taken up as exchange traded market or over the counter market. So these are different classification based on certain reasons or certain conditions that are provided. Now let's understand part by part how this classification works. So let's understand by nature of claim. So the first market in this is the debt market. Now in the debt market, generally debt instruments are traded. For example, debentures may be traded or bonds may be traded. Traded in the sense they may be either bought or sold between certain investors which are already there in the debt market. Now these, and a striking feature of the debt market is the debt instruments generally have a fixed claim. Okay, so there would be a fixed interest rate that would be attached to the debt instrument. For example, if I say I buy a debenture or I become a debenture holder of Reliance Industries. So Reliance Industries basically selling me a debenture. The debenture is having a particular mention of an interest rate on it, which says the debenture, the money that Reliance Industries has taken from me, against that the company would be paying me an interest rate of 7%. So 7% becomes a fixed claim on that debt instrument. So all such kind of debt instruments generally are traded, bought or sold in a debt market. The second is equity market. Now equity market is a market wherein the investors generally deal into equity instruments. Now it is a market for residual claims. So anything remaining back with the company, that is any profits after tax which remains with the company, they would be entertaining the claims out of those profits which are left with them. So they are called as residual claims. So supposedly Reliance Industries has a profit remaining after paying all their dues, all their taxes. There is a profit of 1000 crore. So this becomes a residual claim, and every equity shareholder who owns or has a share of that particular company on the prescribed date would get a claim out of that residual profits or residuals which Reliance Industries has with it. The second classification is about by maturity of claim. Now again, in this there are two types. The first is called as a money market. Now, how it is going to mature? It is going to mature early, that is within a year. So anything which matures within a year is generally traded in the money market. Okay, these funds are called as also short-term funds, and these are markets where only short-term funds are dealt into. Now, no such market exists physically. Okay, so there is no physical existence of such markets. These markets only work on internet, fax, or phone calls. Now, when we talk about money market, there are separate money market instruments which are dealt into money market. Now, what are these instruments? For example, it may be a commercial paper, it may be a certificate of deposit. So these kind of instruments which are specifically there in the money market, only these securities are traded as far as money market is concerned. The next type of market is called as capital market. Now, this is a market where medium and long-term financial assets are traded. So short-term assets generally are traded on money market, whereas long-term, medium-term assets, financial assets are traded in the capital market. Now, this market also can be further segmented into primary market and secondary market. Now, what is a primary market? A primary market is a market wherein first-hand securities are sold, whereas a secondary market is a market wherein second-hand securities are sold or bought. So these are two important divisions of capital market. The next form is by timing of delivery. Now again, if you could see, there are classifications such as cash market and futures market. Now cash market, the market where the transaction between buyers and sellers are settled in real time. So you can say instantly it is bought, instantly it is sold, and the transaction is settled at real time. So right now, if I want to transact, and right now, if the transaction gets settled, then it would be called as a cash market in which I'm dealing. Okay, the second is called as a futures market. Now, in this market, it is a little bit different than the cash market, because over here, delivery or settlement of any commodity generally takes place at a future specified date. So a trader, a seller or a buyer enters into an agreement, but the agreement of delivery or agreement of settlement of a particular commodity only takes in a future date. So for example, if today some agreement is done, but the date of maturity of that agreement would be somewhere in November. So this gap is somewhere, there is a future specified date on the agreement. So such kind of things happen generally as far as futures market is concerned. Let's move on to understand the next classification. The next classification is by organizational structure. Okay, now again there are two types: exchange traded market and over the counter market. We also call it as in India we have OTCEI. The market is called as OTCEI. Now let's understand the exchange traded market first. Now it is a financial market. It has a centralized organization and there are certain standardized procedures to be followed. So if somebody wants to purchase a share or somebody wants to sell a share, so there would be a centralized organization and the procedures would be laid down saying that what would be the different steps you need to follow as an investor if you want to buy anything or if you want to sell anything. The next market is called as a over-the-counter market. Now, OTC basically is characterized by the decentralized organization. There is no centralization as such. No one authority holds these markets and they have customized procedures. So depending on whether the investor is an individual investor or an institutional investor, depending on that, these procedures may be customized. So it is called as over-the-counter market. Now, having been understood the classification of financial markets, let's move on to understand capital markets. Now, when we talk about capital markets, before we go ahead to understand its features and participants, let's understand what this market is all about. So let's start with the meaning of capital market. Now, these markets are venues where savings and investments are channeled between the suppliers who have the capital and those who are in need of capital. So there is always a demand side and there would be always a supply side. So demand side would be handled by all those who require money or capital, and supply side would be handled by those people who have enough of money so that they could invest or channel this money as an investment proportion in the markets. Now, capital market is where the buyers and sellers, they basically engage in a trade of financial securities. So whether it be a stock, whether it be a equity share, whether it be a bond, they are actually going and buying and selling these kind of securities in capital market. Now, as I said earlier, capital market are composed of primary and secondary markets. The most common capital markets are the stock markets that we usually refer to. When capital market, for instance, or the secondary market is referred, we generally talk about stock markets, and then there is bond market. So these are some types of common capital markets that are into existence. Now let's understand who all are the people or participants in a capital market. Over here you could see a picture wherein there are lead managers, issuers, investors, regulators, custodians, broker dealers, depositories, clearing agents. Let's understand part by part what these people are supposed to do in a capital market. So starting with, let's understand first participant, that is the stock exchanges. Now, stock exchange, as we know, it will be a prime facilitator of trading services between the trader and the broker. So anybody who is interested in either purchasing or selling or acting as an intermediary, stock exchange will be a facilitator to them and would offer certain trading services to them. Now, it will offer this service on a regular basis. So it doesn't happen that today the stock exchange has opened and tomorrow it is closed because it doesn't have a mood to do any or offer any kind of trading service. So this doesn't happen. It does it on a regular basis, and it also tries to facilitate the listing of new shares from a company. So it's only not about trading of second-hand shares, but it can be also about new shares or new IPOs which companies are coming up with. So there can be n number of such kind of shares also which are getting listed on the markets. So both things coming together, it becomes a prime facilitator of trading services for the traders as well as the brokers. Now, there would be a question, is there only one stock exchange in every country? So it doesn't happen that way. There can be multiple exchanges in any country, and it would be dependent on how much requirement of such kind of percolation is needed in a particular country. So dependent on that, the country may decide how many stock exchanges should be there within a country. Now, stock exchanges generally provide complete transparency not only to the traders but also to the investors and the general public, or whosoever are the stakeholders. Like for example, government is a stakeholder, regulators are stakeholders. So anybody who is a stakeholder, stock exchanges have to provide a complete transparency on whichever trades that are happening over the exchanges. Now they have to oversee the activities of they have to also oversee the activities of various participants within the stock exchange. So they play a very prime role as far as capital market is concerned. Now I've given over here some examples of who are the regulators in India as well as in Australia. Now is ASIC, it is similar kind of role it plays as SEBI plays in India. So it tries to supervise the activities of stock exchanges in Australia. Whereas in India, we very well know Securities Exchange Board of India generally supervises the activities of stock exchanges in India. Let's move on to understand the second participant. So the second participant is called as a retail investor. These investors are sometimes commonly referred to as individual investor or non-professional investors. So people, general public or investor who is interested to put the hard-earned money into stock exchanges or into investments as far as any financial security is concerned would be called as a retail investor. Now, generally it happens that whosoever is a retail investor, he doesn't have too much of buying or selling capacity. Okay, so they have a relatively low capital investment if you compare it with the institutional investors within a trade or within a security. So that is how they work. They generally try to buy and sell securities. They would also trade into mutual funds or any exchange traded funds. So they generally deal into such kind of buying or selling activities. And they are small investors. So they have not a major capacity to invest a huge capital in the market. So they generally, you could see very small investment proportions of such kind of investors. The next is the next participant is institutional investor. Now, this institutional investor basically is an organization, and they try to invest the capital on behalf of other investors. So they generally, their scale of operation is very huge, magnanimous or large, as you could say. So they try to invest huge capitals in the market, huge capital in the market, and this capital may not be relatively be their own, but they may collect it from retail investors and pump in a huge amount in the stock exchanges. So this is the way they operate. Now, these investors generally possess specialized knowledge and resources, and uh, they also offer specialized services to individual investors as well. Now, as I said, these investors or institutional investors pump in a huge capital. They also have a high risk appetite. So that is also one of the additional feature of an institutional investor. And these investors generally are not interested in purchasing equity shares or bonds or debentures, but rather they are interested in purchasing derivatives. So they don't work as how the retail investors work or trade, but they trade in a different fashion. And so they are people to be watched out in a when such trading kind of scenario happens at a stock exchange. The next participant is a regulator. Now, regulators are the safekeepers of ethics. So any business, any economy runs on ethics. Similarly, it is mandatory that capital markets should also be safe for investors, as for investors or minorities who are trading in the uh, stock exchanges. And these regulators, they generally try to keep a watch whether such ethics are followed or not in the capital market as well. So they would try to safeguard the interest of the investor. They would try to closely supervise the market activities. If there is something wrong happening in the market, uh, some uh, uh, some anomalies are there in the market. So in such kind of activities, these regulators, they generally try to supervise and investigate what really is happening in the market, and they will try to find out a possible solution and try to regulate the market if untoward movements in the market happens. So they are generally people, or not people but organizations which are specially appointed to check or find out or keep a watch on the movements that happens in the stock exchanges. The next is brokers. Now, generally in the earlier stages, if you go back 10 years from this date, the brokers were very much into action. They were individual people, or they were also companies. Right now also there are companies which act as agent, and they try to execute the trades that on behalf of certain retail investors or institutional investors as well. So these people generally, they might be it might be an individual broker or a broker company like sharekhan.com. So these agencies generally, or they act as agents in executing any kind of trade within the market. Now, they don't do this for free, so they charge a commission whenever they execute a trade for someone. Sometimes they also will provide you with hints or insights on how the market is going to go, how a particular investment will work out for you, or they will also provide you which share you should purchase and which you should avoid, why you should do that. So all these kind of services also they provide to the customers while dealing into securities. Now, I'll just, I suppose there is a doubt as far as who is a retail investor and who is an institutional investor. In the earlier slides, I have already said a retail investor can be an individual like you and me who is interested, who is not professional, but who is interested in putting the savings into stock exchanges. Whereas institutional investors, they are generally companies or organizations which have a huge risk appetite and who are ready to put in a huge capital in the market. For example, mutual fund companies, you can take it as an institutional investor also. Okay, so there are institutional investors and they are more majorly like I'm not talking right now about MFs, but institutional investors are generally they are interested in putting or pumping their money in derivatives because they want to have quick money and huge money. Okay, so that is the way institutional investors work. Now, coming back to brokers, generally these brokers, they have to have, there are different types of credentials which are required in different jurisdictions to become a broker. So if you go to BSC site, you will understand that there are certain conditions written there wherein they will specify how much amount you should have as a net worth to be a broking firm, what kind of things you need to do. So all these things are to be followed if somebody wants to become a broking house or broker in the stock exchange. So this is about brokers. Next, I would be moving on to custodians. Now, custodians basically they hold the customer's security to minimize the risk of theft or loss. So generally earlier it used to happen that a shareholder used to get a share certificate, and it used to be a paper wherein it used to be written how much shares the holder is having, what is the price of the share on which it has purchased, what is the folio number, etc., etc. So right now, because everything has been digitalized, now there has been a scene wherein custodians have come into picture. Now uh, these are banks, or these are kind of certain organizations, or it could, you could take it as a big bank which offers a custodian service to an investor. Now, what kind of things it is? What kind of thing it is? Now, it is a simple thing. See, when I want to deposit certain money in the bank, I need to have an account in the bank. The bank will keep my money safe in the account. So whenever I want to withdraw the money, I can pull out the cash. Whenever I want to give it to somebody, I can just transfer it via an NEFT or RTGS, or I can simply give a check. So similarly, these custodians, they will try to hold your securities in an account. Why they will hold? Because they want to minimize your risk of theft of loss. So most of the times in the earlier times, when when somebody used to get the physical certificate, most of the times people would observe, or investor would observe, that it is tampered, or there is some theft, or some it has lost in maybe somewhere. So such kind of problems used to occur. Now, because of custodians, it has become easy. With the custodian, you can understand that you are in the account, you hold 1 lakh shares of XYZ company. So that is a kind of a bank account which you hold with the custodians, wherein you could see how much securities you have traded into, what is the current price of the security, at what date you had purchased the security, right now what is the market price of the security. So all such kind of things you could see on your account which you hold with the custodian. Now, custodian hold financial securities mostly which are fixed income and also of equities. They will deliver a receipt. The delivery and receipt of financial security would be told to you whenever you trade on the said account which you hold with the custodian. So the moment you buy something, you will get a note saying that you have purchased such and such share, or there might be an email which might be popped out saying that you have purchased so and so many of shares of XYZ company, and this is the price of that. So this is how it works. Now in India, you could see ICICI Bank and many other banks which trade into this. You could also see Axis Bank. You could also see IDBI Bank, who trade into or who act as custodians in India. Now, moving on to the next participant, it is the depositories. Now, depositories basically are organizations which facilitate the deposit or the storage. Okay, depositories generally try to hold the security while any of the trade is happening in the said security. So anything, for example, if you want to transfer a share from one account to another account, so till that time, till the transferring process happens, the depository holds your shares. Okay, so that is the way they work. In India, there is Stock Holding Corporation of India Limited, which does or provides the depository kind of services. You could see other examples as well. There is Central Securities Depository in Australia, which provides such depository services. The next is participant is your rating agency. Now, what does a rating agency does? Basically, it is also known as a credit rating agency. It tries to assess the ability to repay the principal and the interest of any company or government on their debts. So supposedly there is a bond in the market, and if you want to judge whether it would be able to pay you back whatever you have invested into that, as in the principal amount, and whether it would be able to give you interest. So in that case, if you just check the credit rating which has been given by any agency like CRISIL, so ICRA, so these are some of the credit rating agencies. If they provide a particular grade saying that whether the company or the government is capable of repaying any kind of debt, so these agencies would rate them, and accordingly an investor understands how financially strong a particular company is and whether to invest or not. So any person would try to interpret the credibility of the issuer of a bond or a debt depending on whatever ratings are being offered by the credit rating agencies. So this is all about your part one of understanding financial markets and understanding the capital markets. Today we have gone through to understand what are financial markets, the meaning of financial markets, how it works. Then we have seen the various classifications. So we have seen a normal classification like uh, money market and capital market and money market. Then we have seen 4 different types of classification which was based on certain reasoning like maturity in claim, etc. Then we have gone on to understand capital market, what is the meaning of capital market, what are the different features of capital market. We have also understood how this capital market, who all are participants in a capital market. So all this thing we have today finished in part one. Thank you. I'll just stop with the recording.